Hello, everyone. Good evening. Nice having you here. So, tonight we're going to be talking about something so many people struggle with. Something so many people struggle with. That is saying no. So many people struggle with saying no. So that is what we're going to be talking about tonight. Yes. Not because they don't know they should, but because it feels uncomfortable. Sometimes even wrong. They feel it's uncomfortable and they feel it's wrong to say no. For some people, saying no is just like a response. Just like a response. It feels like a risk. It feels like a risk to say no. A risk is upsetting someone, a risk of disappointing someone, a risk of losing connection. And when something feels like that, like a risk, the nervous system responds. The nervous system responds. And how does it do that? It doesn't ask what is logic. It doesn't ask what is logic. It asks what is safe to do. What is safe is what seems logic for the nervous system to respond to. So instead of saying no, clearing, it often soften it, try to delay it, or even avoid it altogether. And over time, it becomes a pattern. Not because you lack strength, no, not because you lack strength, but because your system learned to protect connection. So today, we're going to understand that pattern and begin to change it. This is a resilience mind. So saying no feel difficult. Why does saying no feel difficult? Let's take a closer look at why saying no feel difficult. Because for many people, it is not about the word itself. It is about the word that it might cause. Not about the word, but what that no might cause. Saying no is simple, but the meaning attached to it is not. Because for some people, saying that no feel like upsetting someone, disappointing someone, be seen differently, or even losing connection. Or even losing connection. And when those possibility appears, the nervous system reacts. The nervous system reacts. Not logically, like I said before, but emotionally. And it starts internally. When you are about to say no, notice what happened inside. Notice what happened inside. Oh, Joe, look, you are here. Thanks for joining. You are always here. Thanks for your time. So you notice what happened inside. Internally. We're talking about internal reaction of saying no. When you are about to say no, notice what happened inside. There may be a hesitation, a tightness in the chest, or even a pause before responding. A pause before responding. And in that moment, your mind starts asking questions. Your mind starts to ask questions. Will they be upset? One of the questions your mind will be asking, if I say no, will they be upset? Will this change how they feel about me? Or would this change how they see me? Or should I just say yes to avoid this? That's internal dialogue that you're having inside. It's not random. It's not random. It is your nervous system trying to predict the outcome. The outcome of what will happen if you say no. And when that prediction outcome feel uncomfortable, you avoid the action. So instead of saying no, you adjust. Instead of saying no, you adjust. That is the internal reaction of saying no. What happened internally, even before you say the no. There's this also the role of fear. The role of fear. At the core of this pattern is fear. Not the obvious fear, but the reactional fear. The fear of rejection. The fear of being misunderstood. The fear of disconnection. And when connection feel important, those fear might carry weight. Hence, saying no doesn't just feel like a choice. It feels like something that might cost you something. Let me know where you're watching from. For many people, saying no doesn't feel like a decision. It feels like a risk. So there's this part of it, approval and safety. We've talked about internal reaction. We talked about fear. So now we're talking about approval and safety. Because under all this, there's something deeper. There is something deeper. Oh, Giovanni, welcome, Imose. Thank you for joining. The link between approval and safety. For some people, approval is not just something nice. It feels necessary. It feels necessary. When people around you are happy with you, when people around you are happy with you, everything feels stable. But when someone is upset, disappointed, or distant, something shifts internally. The body becomes alert. The mind becomes focused. Then what happened? The priority becomes restoring that sense of stability. So when approval feel like safety, saying no can feel like a risk. So you may not say, how about saying yes? Yes, saying yes feels easier. So let's talk about why saying yes feels easier. Because in that moment, the nervous system makes a quicker decision. What is safer right now? Saying no or facing uncertainty? Or saying yes and keep things stable? Thank you for joining. You're welcome. If saying no means facing uncertainty, so saying yes, keeping those things stable. And most of the time, you choose what feels safer. Which is agreement. Even when that agreement comes with a cost. So what is the hidden cost? We'll go through it together. Because every time you say yes, when you mean no, something small happens internally. And what could that be? You move away from yourself. You ignore your own limit. You override your own needs. You ignore your own limits and override your own needs. And while it may keep the external situation calm, it creates internal pressure. You keep external situation calm, but internally, you create pressure. Inwardly, you create pressure. Over time, that pressure builds. And that is why people feel drained, overwhelmed, or resentful. Not because they don't care, but because they have been saying yes too often. They've been saying yes too often. There's this audience recognition moment. If you recognize this, you know you don't want to do something. But instead of saying no, you said, okay, something like, I will try. Or maybe, and afterwards you feel it. That quiet discomfort. That is a signal. Not really that you did something wrong, but that you did respond honestly. The difficulties of saying no or in saying no is not a weakness. It is not lack of confidence. And it is not lack of awareness. It is learned response to protect connection. And once you understand this, something begin to shift. You stop judging yourself for finding it difficult. And you start to understand what your nervous system is trying to do. So that is a transition towards growth when you start to notice that. When you understand that. You gain something important. Something important. Choice. You can still feel the discomfort though. You can still feel the hesitation. But you don't have to let it decide for you. And that is when change begins. The resilient mind. In this session, there's this thing I want you to, to understand or to take with you the kind of what it's all about. It is saying no doesn't feel like a decision. It feels like a risk. When approval feel like safety, saying no feel dangerous. You are not weak. you are only protecting connection. And every time you say yes, when you mean no, you move away from yourself. And if you are talking about, if what we are talking about feels familiar, it probably means you are someone who thinks deeply about how you relate to others. And that is exactly what we explore here. The resilience mind is about understanding patterns like this, so you can respond with clarity and less pressure. Clarity and less pressure. So if that resonates with you, take a moment to subscribe. And we'll keep building this together. So the next session of it is what I title as conditioning and pleasing people. Let's look at where this pattern begins. Because most people were not taught to say no. They were taught to adjust, to adjust their behavior, to adjust their tone. To even adjust their needs. And over time, the adjustment becomes automatic. So as a children, we learn very quickly to keep the environment stable. As children, we learn very quickly to keep the environment stable. We notice what brings approval. We notice what creates tension. And we also notice what restored calm. As children, it's not like we're taught, we notice, we watch. If expressing your need creates discomfort, you may have learned to soften them. If disagreement leads to tension, you may have learned to avoid them. If complaints brought approval, you may have learned to prioritize it. And none of this is conscious. It is the nervous system adapting. As you may know, children doesn't choose what is true. They choose what feels safe. Safety is their priority. What gets reinforced? Certain behaviors get reinforced. To become agreeable, to become cooperative, easy to deal with. Those qualities are often praised. You are told to be kind. You are told to be thoughtful. You are told you are matured. You are thoughtful. You are kind. Those are the praise. And those things are positive. But underneath them, something else may be forming. The belief that maintaining harmony is your responsibility. That belief of maintaining harmony is your responsibility. Let's talk about the role of pleasing people. This is where people pleasing begins. Not as a personality, but as a strategy to avoid discomfort, to prevent tension, and also to maintain connection. So instead of asking, what do I need? The question becomes, what will keep things smoothly? And that shift is important. Why? Because your decision is no longer guided by your needs, but by other people's reaction. So hence adult in adulthood, adult expression begins from childhood. It's carried into adulthood. So when someone asks you for something, you don't just consider the request. You consider the reaction. How would they feel? Would they be upset? Would this create tension? And even before you respond, your nervous system is already started adjusting. So instead of saying no clearing, you soften it. Just like I said before, you start saying things like, I will try, Maybe. Let me see. Because that feels safer than a direct no. Something important we need to learn from this is that people pleasing is not just about being kind. It is about managing emotional risk. Because of that internal conflict. There is often an internal conflict happening. One part of you says, know what you need. But the other part of you focus on how other will feel. And when those two conflict, people pleasing usually win. Because it feels safer. But safe does not always mean aligned. So if this feels familiar, you say yes in the moment because it is easier. But later you feel it. Fatigue, frustration, sometimes even resentment. It's not because you don't care. It's because you said yes when you meant no. That is the cost of people pleasing. Over time, this pattern, this hidden cost, creates emotional exhaustion. It creates blurred boundaries, loss of clarity, or even disconnection from your own needs. Because when you constantly adjust to others, and slowly lose alignment with yourself, and when that happens, even simple decisions feel heavy. But here is the shift. You can be kind without constantly adjusting. You can be thoughtful without abandoning your needs. You can care about someone's feelings without making them your responsibility. When that's happened, there is transitional growth towards something important. And this is where something important begins to change. You start asking different questions. Not how do I keep this comfortable, but what is true for me here. And that question brings you back to yourself. When you begin choosing honesty over automatic adjustment, when you start building something stronger than approval, self-trust, that is what allows your boundary to become clearer without needing to over-explain them. So that now brings us to guilt and emotional responsibility. Guilt and emotional responsibility. Let's talk about something that makes it even harder. Many people feel guilty when they say no. They feel guilty when they say no. Because for many people, the moment they say no, guilt appears. Not always because something wrong has happened, but because something unfamiliar has happened. And that distinction is important. There are two types of guilt. There are two different types of guilt. One type is guilt appear when you have done something harmful. That kind of guilt help guide us towards repair. But there is another type of guilt that appear when we stop outside of our familiar pattern. When we step outside our familiar pattern. This kind of guilt doesn't mean you are wrong. It means you're doing something different. So where is this guilt from? For many people, this guilt is connected to emotional responsibility. That means feeling responsible for how other people feel. If someone is upset, you feel you should face it. If someone is disappointed, you feel you caused it. If someone reacts, you think it's your job to restore balance. And over time, it becomes automatic. That is your nervous system learning something very specific, pattern. The learn pattern. Your nervous system learns something very specific. And what could that be? If someone feels bad, I should do something about it. And that belief shapes behavior. So when you say no, and someone feels disappointed, your system reacts. Not with curiosity, but with responsibility. So what happened after you say no? Let's look at what happened in real life, in real time. When you say no, and then you feel it, that shift, maybe perhaps the other person becomes quiet, or their tone change, or maybe they even respond differently. Your body reacts immediately. Tension, urgency, and the need to fix it. The urge to repair. That urge, that urgency to repair. That is when the urge appears. The urge to explain, to soften, and to take it back. And you might say, I'm sorry, I just have a lot going on right now. I don't mean it like that. Don't see it from that way. I can still try. And notice what is happening. You are not changing your boundary because it is wrong. You are changing it to reduce discomfort. Guilt is often discomfort of not managing someone else's emotion. Guilt is often the discomfort of not managing someone else's emotions. Emotional responsibility pattern. When emotional responsibility is strong, saying no feels heavy. Because it doesn't feel like I am setting a boundary. It feels like you are causing someone to feel bad. And that belief changes everything. If you feel responsible for other people's emotion, saying no will always feel heavy. If this feel, if you see this, see if this feel familiar. You say no, but you don't feel settled. You keep thinking about it. Did I upset them? Should I explain more? Should I fix this? That is not because your boundaries was wrong. It is because your system is used to letting others have their own emotional response. But this is the shift. Others are allowed to feel disappointed. Other people are allowed to react. Other people are allowed to have emotions. That are not your responsibility to fix. Don't get me wrong. Let's try separating care from responsibility. You can care about someone without taking responsibility for how they feel. You can acknowledge their reaction without absorbing it. You can remain kind without changing your boundary. Why this feel difficult? This feel difficult at first because your nervous system is used to doing something else. It is used to stepping in, stabilizing, restoring balance. So when you don't do that, it feels uncomfortable. And discomfort is not the same as something being wrong. Growth moment. This is where growth happens. When you say no, you don't feel the guilt. Instead of immediately fixing it, you pause. You stay with it. You allow the feeling exist and still care deeply. You can feel guilt without letting it control your behavior. And when you do this, your nervous system learns something new. You can let someone feel something and still be okay. And that learning is powerful. Because over time, the intensity of that guilt begins to reduce. And your boundaries begin to feel lighter. Also remember that guilt does not always mean you are wrong. Sometimes it means you are no longer doing what you are used to do. And that is a part of change. You can care deeply without carrying the responsibility of how other one or anyone feel or everyone feel. This is where emotional freedom begins. So we have talked about guilt doesn't mean you are wrong in this session. You are not facing emotions. You are managing discomfort. Other people are allowed to feel things you don't feel. You can feel guilty without disobeying it. Care and responsibility are not the same thing. Care and responsibilities are not the same thing. So that brings us to rebuilding self-trust. Rebuilding self-trust. So we'll now move into something that changes everything. Self-trust. Self-trust. Because the real difficulty is not saying no. It is trusting that you will be okay after saying it. Self-trust grows when you stop overriding yourself. When you stop overriding yourself. When you begin to listen to your limits. And respond honestly. That doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop carrying. You can care about someone without managing how they feel. And this requires something important. Tolerating discomfort. Because you say no, there may be tension. And instead of fixing it, you stay. You allow it, and slowly your nervous system learns something. I can say no and still be okay. And that is where self-trust begins. Remember, saying no is not rejection. It is recognition of your limit. Saying no is not a rejection. It is the recognition of your limit. The ability to say no doesn't come from confidence first. It comes from learning to tolerate the discomfort that follows. Because discomfort is not danger. It is simply something unfamiliar. And every time you stay present in that moment without over adjusting, without over explaining, you become more stable. You become clearer, and your boundaries become stronger. Remember, you can be kind without saying yes. You can care deeply without carrying everything. You can stay connected without losing yourself. That is not disconnection, that is balance. And that balance is where resilience begins. And that is how resilient mind is built. What makes saying no most difficult? Is fear of disconnection, fear of rejection, fear of saying, upsetting someone. As we come to the end of this conversation, I want to leave you with something to carry with you. How many people say no has ever has never just been a word. How many people saying no has never just been a word? It has been a feeling. Yes. For many people, saying no has never just been a word. It has been a feeling. Feeling of guilt, feeling of responsibility, a feeling of what if this change something. And because of that, you may have learned to adjust yourself. To protect connection. And that made sense. It does make sense, sincerely. It helps you navigate the relationship. It helps you maintain harmony. It helps you feel safe. There is but. But there comes a point where what once protected you begin to weigh on you. And growth begins when you recognize that. And when you realize that saying no, saying yes to everything is not the same as being kind, and that saying no is not the same as rejecting someone, saying no is simply recognizing your limits and your limits are not a problem to solve. They are something to respect. Your limits are not problem to solve. They are something to respect. You are allowed to have space. You are allowed to have boundaries. You are allowed to respond honestly. And if someone doesn't fully understand, and even if you feel uncomfortable at first, and because discomfort does not mean you are doing something wrong. It often means you are doing something new. And every time you choose to respond honestly, instead of automatically adjusting, you're strengthening relationship with yourself. And that relationship becomes the foundation for everything else. So that next time it feels difficult to say no, pause. Not to find a better explanation, but to remind yourself, to remind yourself of something simple. That you can love deeply without carrying everything. And when you begin to live from that space, something change. You feel lighter, you feel clearer, and you feel more like yourself. This is how resilience mind is built. And thank you for being here. Thanks for your time, for finding time out of your busy schedule. If you like it, share with friends and family. You can always go back to it and listen to it again. Anytime you visit, trust you get something new. And thanks once more for being part of this journey. Take care of yourself. Love you all, and God bless you. See you on the next one. Bye.